Let's picture a room in Omaha, Nebraska. It's quiet. There are no flashing screens, no traders yelling into phones. There's just a man, a desk, and a bunch of company reports. Now this is the command center where one of the biggest fortunes in history was built. And it wasn't built on speed. It was built on stillness.
See, we've all been told a lie, a really expensive one. The lie is that to get rich, you've got to be fast. You have to trade all the time, react to every little news blip. But Warren Buffett's entire life's work proves that's just not true. He didn't win by outracing everyone. He won by hitting the brakes when the rest of the world was sprinting right off a cliff.
And that right there is the big mystery, isn't it? His entire strategy is out there for anyone to see. It's an open book. Millions of people have read it, studied it, and yet almost nobody, and I mean nobody, gets the same results. So why is that? It's because we're all looking for the hot stock tip, but the secret, it isn't a stock. It's a fortress he built inside his own mind.
So, the first clue to cracking this code has nothing to do with a balance sheet or an income statement. It's a mindset. It's a way of forcing extreme discipline on yourself in a world that basically begs you to have none.
Buffett has this amazing mental model he talks about. He calls it the 20-slot punch card. I want you to imagine this. When you're born, you're given a punch card with only 20 slots on it. That's it. 20 investments for your entire life. Every time you buy a stock, you punch a hole. Once you've punched all 20, you're done. No more. How would that change the way you invest? You'd stop taking flyers on silly fads, wouldn't you? You'd start looking for absolute, rock-solid certainty.
To really get where this laser-like focus comes from, we have to go back, way back, to his childhood. Two things happened to him during the Great Depression that basically scarred him for life, and, in doing so, shaped his entire way of thinking.
He was just 11 years old when he bought his first stock. Can you imagine? And what happens? The price immediately tanks. He feels that sick, gut-wrenching panic that every single one of us feels the first time that happens. He somehow holds on, sells it for a tiny, tiny profit, and then has to watch in pure agony as that same stock skyrockets to almost 5 times what he sold it for. Ouch. That was the first scar, the searing, unforgettable pain of impatience.
He realized right then that just being smart wasn't going to be enough. He needed a system. An operating system for his brain. And then he found it in this book, The Intelligent Investor. And let me tell you, this wasn't just another book for him. It was a revelation. It completely changed his world and became the bedrock of his entire career.
Graham's big idea was actually pretty revolutionary for its time. He basically said, hey, you're not buying a ticker symbol. You're not buying a squiggly line on a chart. You are buying a piece of a real-life actual business. See, a speculator tries to guess where the squiggly line will go tomorrow. An investor asks a totally different question. If the stock market shut down for the next 5 years, would I be happy owning this company? That single distinction, that is everything.
And Graham's most brilliant idea was probably this little story about Mr. Market. Imagine you have a business partner, and his name is Mr. Market. The only problem is he's totally bipolar. Some days he's euphoric, he's ecstatic, and he offers to buy your shares from you at ridiculously high prices. Then, other days, he's deeply depressed and offers to sell you his shares for pennies. Now, most people let Mr. Market's mood swings dictate their own. But Buffett realized Mr. Market is not there to guide you. He is there to serve you. You take advantage of his moods. You don't let them control you.
Okay, so now he's armed with Graham's playbook, and Buffett develops his first real strategy. It was gritty, it was all about the numbers, and it worked like a charm. But it had a fatal flaw hiding inside it.
He called it his Cigar Butt strategy. Seriously, he would look for companies that were like old, soggy cigar butts somebody threw on the ground. They looked disgusting, nobody wanted them, but he figured there was still one good puff left in them that he could get for free. He was literally buying companies for less than the cash they'd have if they just shut down and sold off all the furniture. It was a pure mathematical bet that was almost impossible to lose.
And man, did it work. It made him a millionaire. But then he ran into a big problem. A good problem, but a problem nonetheless. His pile of money got too big. You just can't invest hundreds of millions of dollars into tiny, junky little companies. There aren't enough of them. The very strategy that made him rich was now holding him back. He was stuck. He had to evolve or his career was going to stall.
And this is where his partner, the legendary Charlie Munger, comes in and changes everything. Munger convinced him of a profound idea. Warren, he said, it's far better to buy a wonderful business at a fair price than a fair business at a wonderful price. The whole game shifted. The new goal was to find the moat, some kind of durable competitive advantage, like the brand name of Coca-Cola, that protects the company's profits from invaders, just like a moat protects a castle.
So now he has this new, powerful philosophy. And when you combine that with two other massive forces, well, that's what launched his wealth into the stratosphere. One is a simple law of math, and the other is a much harder law of human psychology.
First up, the snowball. Just look at these numbers. It's insane. Over 99% of his net worth was earned after his 50th birthday. Let that sink in for a second. His real secret wasn't just being a brilliant investor. It was being a brilliant investor for a really, really long time. He's a legend because he's been rolling that snowball down the hill longer than anyone else.
But hey, being patient is easy when the market's going up and everything's great. The real test of your character, the real test of your strategy, comes when the storm hits. I want you to think back to 2008. The entire global financial system was on the verge of collapse. Your 401k was in a nosedive. Every cell in your body, your very survival instinct, is screaming one thing: sell, get out.
Now, while the entire world was in a state of sheer panic, Buffett's phone rang. It was Goldman Sachs, one of the most powerful banks in the world, on its knees, begging for cash to survive. And while everyone else was running away from the fire, Buffett grabbed a fire hose full of money and ran straight toward it, investing $5 billion. He was living by his most famous words: be greedy when others are fearful.
And what that really shows you is that the biggest risk you face as an investor, they're not in the market, they're not a bad economy, they're inside of you. The real enemy is that person you look at in the mirror every single morning, the one who battles with impatience, distraction, and greed.
You know, there's a kind of ghost story in the Berkshire Hathaway archives that proves this point perfectly. We all know the famous duo, right? Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. But what most people don't know is that in the beginning, it wasn't a duo. It was a trio. There was a third man, and by all accounts, he was just as brilliant as the other two.
His name was Rick Guerin. Super smart, super talented, but he was in a hurry. He used leverage, borrowed money, to try and get rich faster. Now that's great when you're right, but it's catastrophic when you're wrong. And during the big market crash of '73, he got the dreaded margin call and was forced to sell all of his Berkshire shares back to his friend Warren Buffett for pennies on the dollar. Rick was the impatient genius, and he found out the hard way who wins in the end.
And for the rest of us, the people who aren't geniuses, Buffett proved there's an even simpler way. He made a famous $1 million bet. He wagered that a simple, boring, low-cost S&P 500 index fund would outperform a hand-picked group of sophisticated, high-fee hedge funds over 10 years. And the result? It wasn't even close. The simple, boring fund absolutely crushed the so-called smart money. It's proof that for most of us, just being patient and keeping costs low is the winning ticket. And this discipline, this focus, it goes way beyond just money for Buffett. He uses this little exercise, the 25-5 rule. He tells people to write down the top 25 things they want to accomplish in their career. Then, you circle the 5 most important ones. Now here's the twist. You look at the other 20. Those don't become your plan B. No, they become your avoid-at-all-costs list. They are now the enemies of what you truly want to achieve. That's the kind of brutal focus we're talking about here.
Which really brings us to the last and maybe the most important question. What's the point of all this? Right? Why go through all the trouble to accumulate a massive fortune? For Buffett, the answer has nothing to do with buying yachts or fancy houses. It has to do with how you keep score in the game of life.
In the end, Buffett says the real test isn't the number in your bank account. It's not about how many buildings have your name on them, it's this. He says, how many of the people you want to have love you actually do love you? That, he says, is the only scorecard that truly matters. It's the final piece of the puzzle, the hidden variable in this formula for a truly wealthy life. And it's a powerful reminder that the greatest returns, they're not financial at all.